presented by Ram, starts now.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Playing T. Corn. Sitting along John Sable. Al, hey, how about this? Our second week, baby. Second week. Finally, these knuckleheads win a football game.
It only took
second
them,
week in this show.
Only took them 2 months.
That's all right. You know, sometimes good things are hard to come by. Sometimes you have to wait for good things.
Yeah, good things happen to those who are patient.
Well, mostly not. But,
right.
Yeah, but it does.
When it comes to the Bucs, it doesn't happen that way.
No, not so much. But I'll tell you what I saw last Sunday, I think they need to bottle that baby. I think it's the high end of what we're going to see this season.
Yeah,
the production they came up with.
A 20-point win on the road. Mm-hmm. I mean, virtually unheard of for this team. Your second win of the year. The only dominant win they could have all year. I mean, the other game against Pittsburgh, they won by 3, closing seconds of the game in Pittsburgh. And then you look at the rest of the schedule. I mean, I don't see another double-digit win, let alone maybe another one. We'll see.
I don't care if it's double-digit, 1 by 1.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is, but these dudes are only 2 games out, and I know that sounds nuts. And just think what they're talking about in Atlanta. You know, look at the Falcons are sitting there. They stink, and they're leading the division. So
and how many times have we talked about how bad the Falcons have been on the show?
Yeah.
All year long.
Well, we did a couple of weeks ago.
We did a couple weeks ago.
We did. JP. But in any case, folks, it is the Chicago Bears this week. The Bucs will be at Soldier Field. I understand that the weather conditions at Soldier Field are going to be less than ideal.
100% chance of rain?
And I guess it's going to be some kind of driving rain, so they say. So I guess next to Buffalo, Chicago may be the worst weather.
Yeah.
And speaking of Buffalo, we're going to have a special guest tonight that'll be joining us on the plank in the next quarter hour.
Yeah, 15
and
minutes
who's
away.
that going to be there?
That'll be my father-in-law from Buffalo. He is there braving the storm and dealing with all the snow there. We'll be talking to him just to kind of get the feel of the area. And this is a video that my father-in-law, Greg, shot this evening from I believe his backyard. And that's a snowdrift up against the house there, Tom, but there is 6 to 7 feet of snow on the ground. Yeah. All in the backyard. I mean, you've seen pictures on Twitter and all over the news all week long of just the I-90 in Buffalo completely snow covered. There's their dog Tula. That is not a drift. That's in the backyard. That is straight up 6 feet of snow. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
you grew up in Chicago. You in the Midwest.
I've seen a couple of feet. You know, nothing compared to this. This is incredible.
I
don't even know. In the NFL, we're going to get into that. Yeah. Let's save that for a little later in the show. But we will let you know, though, that the Jets-Bills game has been postponed, and it's going to be moved either to Detroit or Washington, D.C.
Or even Pittsburgh, too.
Well, Pitt's out now because they've got some, I think, high school championship games they got to play. Yeah. So they're going to. It's going to be one of those 2 cities, and we think it's going to be Monday night.
Which is going to be crazy because if you think about how many times Buffalo has actually played in snow, but that's not the issue. The issue is trying to get fans to the stadium and public transportation. The public cannot get anywhere. People are still snowed in. My father and brother-in-law haven't left the house in a few days. So, and they're not even the worst of it. You go a little more east into that snow belt area there, and it's even way worse, even more snow. Tractor trailers turned over. It's just a whole mess there. Us both growing up in the Midwest, we've seen bad snow, but that has been certainly the worst.
No, I've got a story in Buffalo that I'll save for a little bit later, and remind me about it because it blew me away, and it blew the car door away too.
A car door?
Oh, yes, it did.
Good
yes,
teaser.
It did. But in any case, we want to talk more about now the Chicago Bears against the Buccaneers. And, of course, Greg Auman, who is our standby guy from the Tampa Bay Times, will be getting us up to speed. What went on over at $1 today? They're let's face it. This is sort of a game within a game. Lovey going back to Chicago.
Yeah,
it's
a homecoming.
Well loved in Chicago.
Homecoming, 9 seasons, 10 wins, playoffs. They had to make a change 2 years ago. We talked about it earlier today about it, and you got to look at the legacy that he has there. He left there. 3rd all-time on the wins list for the Chicago Bears organization. Got him to a Super Bowl. Of course, Peyton Manning beat the Bears that year. But this is going to be interesting. The last time he was on the sidelines there at Soldier Field was a loss to Green Bay, which was that eliminated them for postseason play in 2012, which eventually sealed his fate. They won 2 more games on the road. But They still went 10-6, but the Bears made a change and eventually fired Lovie Smith. So, and Josh McCown, of course, Bears quarterback last year, started a lot of games after the injury to Jay Cutler. So he knows that defense very well. So that'll be interesting to see how McCown can read that Bears defense with Lance Briggs and all those other cast of characters.
Well, let's bring in Greg Auman in the conversation right now from the Tampa Bay Times Buccaneer beat writer, joining us here on the Plank Report presented by Ram. All right, Greg, how you doing, my man?
Doing well, Tom. Doing well. Hope you guys are doing well.
Yeah, we're doing fine. Get us up to speed on what's going on as far as injuries or with the football team. Are they going relatively healthy this week?
You know, they were until today. There's two wrinkles today that are definitely interesting ones. Levante David, obviously, guy who's tied for the NFL lead in tackles and a huge part in the middle of this Bucs defense, was limited yesterday with a hamstring injury, and then they held him out completely today. So, hamstrings are tricky. That you want to be careful with them because if you let things persist, they can knock you out for a couple games. So, Lovie Smith seems optimistic. I think we'll probably know better tomorrow in terms of whether he's held out again tomorrow or whether he at least tests a little bit in practice. But obviously, that'd be a big loss in the middle of that defense if he can't go. The other name to watch is Charles Sims, the rookie running back who's played here in the last 2 weeks and shown some promise. They had him listed today as limited with an ankle injury. We don't know if that's the same ankle. Obviously, he had surgery on his ankle in August, and that's why he missed the first 8 games of the season. But those two are obviously two big names who are now in question for Sunday up in Chicago.
And we all know, you mentioned the hamstring injuries. Lovie Smith and the entire training staff, they take these hamstring injuries very seriously. When you look at Werner, who's also listed as limited participation, but look at these hamstring injuries we've had this whole season, going back to training camp, whether it was Werner or even Mike Evans or even Jenkins earlier in the year. So this is something that they're really taking a little precautionary twist with. Don't you agree, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for them to sit, Werner's an absolutely central part of this defensive secondary, and to sit him the last 2 weeks, it is being very careful with him. Obviously, they've got Werner as a part of their plans for a long time, so I think they just want to get him healed and make sure there's no threat. Corner's a position where you have to be able to go full speed when necessary. The last thing you want to do is have somebody pull up, aggravate that injury, and now not be covering a receiver deep downfield. So Werner does look, he's out there in practice every day. I would be surprised if he's out a third game, but obviously they'll just wait and see how that feels and how his treatment goes here in the next few days.
Greg, normally a 2-8 team against a 4-6 team doesn't garner much attention, but certainly this game has a little twist to it, probably bigger for the folks in Chicago than maybe for the folks here in the Tampa Bay area. But Lovie Smith, of course, returning to the Bears, 9 seasons up there, got him close to winning a Super Bowl, losing out to Tony Dungy. They've been to 2 NFC title games, 3 playoff games. And he's going back, and he's still really loved in that town. Your thoughts on how Lovie handled that this week? And I thought that he might want to grab a hold of that maybe a little bit more to take off the pressure of the players and really talking about the game itself and in the X's and O's portion of it.
Yeah, I think there definitely was an opportunity if he wanted to kind of put the attention on himself there. Lovie doesn't do a lot of that, obviously, and he's a fairly even-keeled guy. When you think about kind of treating every game the same, maybe there's a heightened interest in a division game, but no, he's not going to capitalize any letters. He's not going to make any one thing bigger than another. So he's very much kind of taken the approach that this is another game. He's looking forward to it because it's a chance for them to win 2 in a row. I think he's made it clear he has a lot of lifetime friends from Chicago, in Chicago, very good memories of football and fans there, but I don't think he's playing up the revenge card or anything like that. I mean, it sounds like he's not even really doing it with the team in private. I just think he's trying to make every game equally important. The players have all the motivation they need just in wanting to be a better team and get another win.
I find it hard for Lovie, though, to have any revenge on Chicago because they paid him. He was sitting in that basement making $3 million a year. I don't think he has any problems with that at all, man.
Oh, sure. No, we're not always all that lucky to keep getting paid a couple years after we lose our jobs. So, yeah, that certainly softened things a little bit, but just from a pride standpoint, I'm sure.
Right. I got you.
You never want to be, have someone decide they're better off without you, especially if they're paying money for you not to coach. So just from a a pride standpoint. I'm sure the players will be motivated to want to show their coach that they're better off with him and that the other team, could have used his services, that kind of thing. I think in talking to guys like Isaiah Fry and Major Wright and Josh McCown, guys who played in Chicago and are going back as well, I think it'll be a motivation for them individually to want to show that, they should have been kept around just like Lovie.
Greg, I just mentioned this a second ago. Josh McCown also coming back to Chicago, of course, played last year for the injured Jay Cutler. How much of an advantage do you think that he's going to have to maybe give the Bucs some tips on what's going on, but also even reading that Bears defense, seeing what they've done in practice, and of course watching all last year? Do you expect Josh McCown to maybe possibly have a big game just because of what he knows?
Yeah, you think so. I mean, it's definitely a familiarity, I think, is a great advantage, and the Bucs have a lot of it this week. I mean, actually, Lovie Smith probably doesn't have as much as some others do. I think there's only 13 players out of 53 on this Bears team that actually played for Lovie. You're talking about a span of less than 2 years. They've had a Buck level of turnover there in Chicago. But like you said, Josh McCown certainly went up against this defense, saw them in practice, a lot of the same key people. Obviously, they've made some free agent additions this year, just like the Bucs did. And honestly, the other thing is Leslie Frazier. I mean, Leslie Frazier's a guy that faced this Bears team twice a year for the last 7 years. And I think personnel has changed. The coaches, obviously, he's only faced Trestman twice. But I do think there's not a lot of introductions he has to make in the film room in terms of finding out who players are and their philosophies there in Chicago. I think that's definitely something that can help the Bucs.
Greg, what we saw last week from the Buccaneers against the Redskins, RG3 certainly not on his game. I think maybe a couple of passes he could have connected with. It might have been a little different story. It could have possibly been anyway. But nonetheless, the facts are the facts of what the Buccaneers defense was able to do. I look at it from this standpoint, and I guess call me a doubting Thomas, but I think it's the high ceiling right now of what we can see from this Buccaneer football team. Now it's just a matter of this team trying to get that lower ceiling that they've produced here in the course of the year and up that. And they can get themselves at least in the middle of the pack is going into next season. And who knows what's going to happen in this division because it's the godforsaken division.
Yeah, it's the worst division ever.
And they've still got, I guess, a shot with some help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously they've shown, with the exception of 2 games this year, that they can play with anybody. I mean, you have five fourth-quarter leads. They just lost all of them, or at least all but one with the Pittsburgh game up until Sunday. So Sunday was really kind of the first we've seen this team play with a lead, kind of take control of a game and move on. So now, like you said, now that they're capable of that, I think they're going to have the expectation of that. They're going to want to validate that win against Washington by doing it again. And again, Chicago's probably a tougher team. It's probably a tougher place to play. But I think, like you said, if they do the same things, if they get pressure from the defensive line, if they take the ball away, give themselves a lead early, there's certainly the same recipe can lead to the same result on Sunday if they can do that again.
Well, you mentioned getting the ball. Takeaways was something that the Bucs and Lovie Smith and Leslie Frazier preached all of last week. The Bucs last weekend against the Redskins got 3 takeaways. You look at Jay Cutler, he's leading or second in the NFL in throwing interceptions. He airs the ball out. He's got some great receivers. This game could be won through the air if you're Chicago. This could bode well for more takeaways for the Bucs on paper, or also could hurt them with some of the issues that they have on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's probably, if you had to pick a key to the game, it's winning that battle again. Cutler's a guy that throws the ball a lot. They're gonna have the opportunity for interceptions. You think about last week. They benefited from basically 2 tip balls. Lance Hanna caught one that was thrown a little low, and Niles Paul just kind of skipped it to him almost. Jonathan Banks got his interception on the ball that was tipped by Mason Foster. So it has to start with just getting, putting them in position to get balls that can be tipped or can be misdirected, or plays can be made. And then once you do that, they can be an opportunistic defense. This is a defense, when Lovie coaches it and when they execute it the way he wants it to, they can have a lot of turnovers. You think about Lovie's teams in Chicago. I think his last Bears team in 2012 had 44 takeaways, led the NFL, had 24 interceptions. That's his brand of defensive football, and I think they really only got to that here this past week after trying for 10 weeks to get there.
And if anything bodes well for the Bucs, Bears only won one home game all year, and it was last week against the Vikings.
Yeah, one of the guys, Greg, one of the guys that concerns me with Chicago is Matt Forte. I know we talk a lot about Cutler. You got Brandon Marshall and the young kid Alshon Jeffrey.
Yep.
So, but Matt Forte, he's the guy that killed them the last time they played. He rushed for over 100. He rushed for over 100 against Minnesota, and I look at a couple of defenses. Minnesota and the Bucs are very similar in their statistics. If it's going to rain, which they say it is, Matt Forte is a guy you really gotta stop.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Forte is probably the best pass-catching running back in the NFL right now. So he's a threat, not only running the ball, but catching the ball as well. And like you said, the weather could very well, take away or at least lessen the impact of these big 6'5" receivers on both sides of the ball. I mean, I think everybody, when Mike Evans first came here to Tampa Bay, wanted to compare this offense with Evans and Jackson to Marshall and Jeffrey and what Josh McCown had with them last year, and obviously what Jay Cutler has with them. So, yeah, the weather can take some of that away. I still think they're going to be able to throw the ball. But, yeah, if they can contain Matt Forte, you think about what they tried to do last week. Last week was a game where they won despite getting outrushed by 100 yards. Alfred Morris, I think, ran for about 90. Robert Griffin had about 40 yards. So they won despite not winning the battle on the ground. They're kind of running the ball the way they wanted to. And I think if they want to win on Sunday, that's probably something they do have to do, is win that battle and outgain the Bears on the ground.
All right, well, listen, Greg, appreciate it. And have a safe trip up to Chicago. Keep dry, because it is going to rain. I'll let you know right now, it's going to rain.
Take care. We'll do it again next week.
Okay, have a good one. All right, man. Greg Auman joining us
Thanks,
from the
Greg.
Tampa Bay Times. We appreciate it. Very astute, and as always there with his eyes peeping.
And Greg
At
mentioned
$1.
about how this game could also. He still thinks it's still going to pass the ball in the rain. And you mentioned the running game. The Bucs have only been they've been outrushed every single game this year except for 3. Meaning they've only been breaking a century mark of 100 yards in 3 games throughout the entire season. 2 of them happening in the first 2 weeks of the year. That's not good. The running game this year for the Bucs, if we talked about, it's not like a broken record. Bobby Rainey, Mike James, Doug Martin, even now Sims, we don't know if he's going to play. That could be a big problem again.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I think this is a misnomer. We're going to go to break shortly, but this is a misnomer when everybody says, well, you got to set up the run to set up the pass. It's always the run, set up the pass. Yeah. The hell it does. Green Bay, you tell me that Aaron Rodgers, okay, that he waits for the running game to set his game up.
It doesn't work that way.
I saw them last week, and I sure didn't see that.
Right.
No, and I said week before, I certainly didn't see that.
Yeah, I agree.
If you go with your strength, and their strength right now, albeit it might be one game, but it's Josh McCown right now.
And Mike Evans.
And Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. That is it, man. You go to the kid, and you see what you could do to move that football down the field.
And we'll talk more about this throughout the show, but don't be surprised if Mike Evans continues to get double coverage here starting this week.
Good. That'll give Jackson a chance.
Yep. They're your old Duncan ears.
All right. Okay, folks, here's how you get a hold of us.
813-367-0171. You can reach Tom and I on Twitter with our Twitter handles there, as well as using the hashtag #ThePlank. And also, we have a segment on the show called Who Said That? If you can figure out who said what we're about to show you here coming up here from the Buccaneers locker room this afternoon, or this week rather, you have a chance to win, TK?
A pizza.
A pizza.
From Papa John's.
Yes.
Papa John's Pizza. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have a board of the pizzas. There's Papa John.
Yeah.
We don't have the pizza. How come we don't, I still say we should get a pizza. Why don't we have a pizza?
We should have one.
I wanted a pizza. No pizza.
Get a pizza. Yeah. So if you can guess, we want to hear from you. Tweet at us, call on us. Who said this?
I'm grateful for the award, and I'm happy that my performance helped the team get a win. Most receivers, I'm sure they feel when they have a game like that. It feels like a basketball player when they get hot, they can't miss. So I kind of felt something like that.
All right. So who said that? Call us 813-367-0171, and you have a chance to win a pizza if you can get that. A lot of easy clues here. This one's another easy one this week.
Right, and coming up, your father-in-law.
Yes.
From Buffalo, folks, we're going to get the update on what's going on there. Oh, my goodness, man.
Snow.
Stay with us.
More snow and snow.